Like, what do you see? What's the number one or the top few mistakes that you just see again and again, and you're like, oh.
Particularly when they have addressed their application for a totally wrong job.
Yeah.
They're applying for, thank you for so-and-so company, and you're like, that's not the company this role's for. It's the scattergun approach, as I sort of alluded to before.
Biggest red flags on CVs that you see people?
Ooh, biggest red flags. I would say listing just responsibilities, and you can see you've cut and pasted it. So say you're a salesperson, for example, right? And you've moved in your career, but it's the same list that you've given me. You haven't given me outcomes. You haven't given me explanations about what you've done. You haven't given me targets that you've met. So again, you're not distinguishing yourself from anybody else in the marketplace.
In the professional space, would you recommend having a LinkedIn profile?
Absolutely. LinkedIn profiles, obviously these days, put a link to that. So, people are cross-referencing, or they might do a Google search on you. Again, we might come to that and saying, hey, just what's out there on yourself, check that before applying for a role. I'm pretty sure, most of the time you might have entered an adventure race, or it could be you worked for other companies, and so your company, like I'll come up with different companies that I might have worked for because I've done articles, or because I've posted, jobs. So therefore, it'll bring that sort of thing up.
What are some of the funniest or the worst or strangest applicants that you've had or come across the desk?
Oh, look, if you've got a video call, 100% make sure what's in your background. Really, that is super important. So you can blur it. Find one of those AI ones, San Francisco Bridge behind you.
Yeah.
But don't have your bedroom door or the shower, and then the next minute your partners walk past, or your dog or your kids, or just be very mindful of where you're sitting and what does that look like. And you can test beforehand, 100%.
Yeah.
Look, I've had interviews where I've rung someone and declined them, and they've said to me, oh, that's okay, I'm just going to carry on sitting on the dole drinking Coke and smoking cigarettes on your tax money. And I've gone, okay, well, you probably weren't right for the job. So thank you for your honesty. Yeah, so look, there's so much when you've been in it 22 years, been pretty interesting what I can come across.
All right, well, welcome to Shedlife. We've got another awesome episode. As everyone, we're talking to good Kiwis working hard, because everyone's welcome for a chat in the shed. Today, Brigitta Warren, wife, mother, entrepreneur, runs her own business, hired myself for Waikato Sheds over 7 years ago now, does all the HR and the hiring for us and continues on. So we've got to know each other great over the years, and somehow I made it through the interviewing process and the screening process. Maybe it was because AI wasn't around then. But yeah, we've had a lot of seeing people going backwards and forwards, and I thought it would be great to get in, have a chat with you about where you're from, but from both sides of it, employers, employees, how can you make yourself stand out in this economy and this thing so that you can get in a shot with an employer? And on the flip side, if you're an employer, how do you cut through it all and find the best people for your team? Because on both sides of it, I hear people going, oh, it's so hard to get a job. And then I hear all my employer friends going, oh, it's so hard to find the right people. So I'm like, there's good people out there, there's good employers. How do they meet in between?
The two, yeah.
So give us just a little bit of a rundown. Where are you from originally? Where'd you grow up? And how'd you end up in the world of recruiting?
Thanks, Jason, for having me. I actually grew up in South Africa and ended up in New Zealand, coming up 30 years at the end of this year. Dad worked for Gallagher's, which I'm sure everyone in the Waikato know about, and so they brought us out. Went to university in the good old Tron, and that led me to Auckland and London. I was actually a scientist as a background, nice. And while I was living abroad, I was in a laboratory and in that capacity working with sales and reps, and so I came back to New Zealand and thought, I don't want to be stuck behind a lab in a lab coat, and so went to a recruitment company and said, hey, I've got the science background, I want to get into scientific sales. And they said, look, we like your background, but recruitment to sales, you're selling a job to a candidate and a candidate to a client. And I didn't have a job, and I was broke. I'd just come back from London. So, okay, give this a go. And 3 months, and I loved it. And here I am over 22 years later. I love making a difference for my clients and my candidates. So the right match, it's fantastic. Everyone comes out of it feeling like they've been heard. But yeah, it's a good place to be.
That's awesome. It was I had no idea that you'd done the science background. 2 questions from it. What was it like coming from a teenager in South Africa to, I get so much sick for that, I apologise to the South Africans. But from South Africa to the mighty Waikato, and then just a little bit, what were you specialising in the science side of things?
I sort of came into the mighty Waikato, and the first thing I did was I opened the car door and went, all it smells like are cows. And I thought, what have my parents done to me, But
Were you from the city? Whereabouts in South?
Yeah, Durban. So beach city. But, you're an 18-year-old girl, and you're just getting into, I finished school, and I've got my whole social life ahead of me. And now I've got to make all these new friends. Fortunately, Waikato University, people do tend to come from outside, so they're all in the same boat. But then the holidays would come, and I'd be like, where's everyone gone? So they've gone back to their, hometown. So that was a bit of a challenge. But and how I got into science is, I guess, again, coming to a new country, I was like, well, I'm good at science or maths. And so kind of I got in, let's just get through university. And it interested me, absolutely. And so I did the genetic side. So that was really interesting. And I could have absolutely would have loved to have gone further, but I didn't want to do a PhD, and really to get anywhere further that required it. And I found that, especially in London, the personality came up in these reps, and you're trying to sell, solutions, etc. And I thought, that'll be a bit of fun driving around. So yeah.
Cool. That's very cool. All right, we'll get into the recruiting side. So 22 years you've been doing it?
Yep.
So you must have met tens of thousands of people, I would say. I was going to say thousands, but I would say actually over that time it's probably tens of thousands of people and CVs you've seen and have come across the desk. So you'll have definitely know then the biggest mistakes people make when they're applying for the jobs. Like, what do you see? What's the number one, or the top few mistakes that you just see again and again, and you're like,
particularly when they have addressed their application for a totally wrong job. So they're applying for, thank you for so-and-so company. And you're like, that's not the company this role's for. Or they're applying for a sales manager role, but it's an operations CV. So it's just not matching. It's the scattergun approach, as I sort of alluded to before. It's not... they're playing a numbers game, and I can understand the frustration as some people are in a position where they really need a job. But the more targeted your approach, the more proactive you are, the more someone can see that you've really put an effort into it, will definitely get you ahead of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would speak to that is what you've said. And I've worked with hundreds, probably thousands of salespeople over my career. So I've seen not as many, but a lot of CVs. Yeah. When they can't figure out to write it to the particular company, like that's the thing is, someone said it, is if you're unemployed or you're looking for a job, treat it as your full-time job, looking for a job, but just take it seriously. When I was applying for Waikato Sheds, I had 2 different CVs that I would work in with. I had my sales account manager style, like, hey, am I going to get a role that's going to be focused on me being a salesperson? And then I had my CV written to talk about my experiences more directly, as if I'm going to be on the front row sales. Or when I was applying for sales manager roles, it's like, okay, how can I demonstrate that I've managed the others? Because they're quite in the same industry, but very different roles. And then if you're going to, it's quite offensive, I think, to the people that have to read all those CVs, and it's such a waste of time. There's just no way you'll make it through. Your CV could be awesome and you could be the right person, but if you say, dear sir, I am applying for the operations manager, and it's a sales rep role, it's just like, go on.
Yeah.
It's...
No, absolutely. And And if you're unsure of the job, ring up whoever's, or do some research. Find out, okay, well, they haven't put a phone number, but they've listed the company. Well, okay, let me jump online and say, look, I'm applying for this role. I've got a few questions. Those who ring up often get my attention, say, my CV isn't that clear. Can I have a bit of a chat about it? Because sometimes a clear CV, I interviewed a woman last week, actually, and she's had to take a couple of years break to look after a stage 3 autistic child and just get her back on track. But she is a phenomenal project manager. And so... But by the time I had finished interviewing her, she gave me all this. She's just as competent as someone who's probably been working and hasn't had a break. Her attitude, her willingness, but even just the quality of her answers and her confidence. And so often when one of the hiring and mistakes that people don't want to hear is, oh, well, why didn't I get the job? And sometimes it can be so close, but it's actually how clear and confident were you in your delivery through that process.
Yeah. I like that also is you've got to make yourself stand out a little bit in the very first thing. And so it's like, do I write a cover letter or not? Well, do you want the job or not? Is like, if you can't be bothered writing the cover letter, and the cover letter doesn't need to be it needs to be formal, like do it hi there or something.
Yeah.
But explain why you want to be, and I'll just keep using sales, that's my word. Why do you want to be a salesperson? Why do you want to be a project manager? Why do you want to do that?
Yeah.
And if the company is known, why do you want to work for that company? And spend, I'm not going to say 5 minutes, I'm going to spend a couple of hours. Go on there, check out their website. If they've got social channels, which most of them will, check out their socials and be like, pitch yourself why you want to be there rather than just like, hey, I'm a good person, they should come back to me.
Take them on the journey.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Cut through the noise of that. Look, I'm looking through hundreds and hundreds of CVs. Those who actually take the time to do a personalised cover letter that actually suits the role they're applying for, I'm looking at them straight away. Those who are just throwing their CV in, I'm going, okay, well, how many else have you probably applied for?
Yeah. What about if they've read it and it says apply to Brigitta and it says at the end and they address it to you? Will that get them higher on the list if they go, hi, Brigitta, I really like this job?
Oh, look, yes, definitely. Those who actually give me a phone, because I put my phone number on the adverts as well, give me a phone call.
Yeah.
Hey, do you have 5 minutes just to have a chat about this? And often, if an advert's been up for a while, if you don't apply in the first sort of 7 days, we're probably shortlisting already. Not saying I continue to look, because at the end of the day, my client wants the right person, not just anyone on bum on seat. And so pick the phone up, because often I'll just sneak another one in because I go, oh, great, they've picked up the phone, they've used their initiative. Yes, they were a bit late applying or they hadn't seen it. And so, hey, and then get included because they've taken me on the journey. They've said, these are my skills, this is what I have to offer.
Yeah. And so do you think it's common now that all the CVs are going to be AI screened first, or will you screen them after, or at what point do you put them through the process like that?
Oh, look, I think organisations that probably have large teams and that big corporate are probably going to adopt AI. I work in the SME market, and so whether I've got 100 applications or I've got 10 for that role, I'm looking through every single one because you just don't know the nugget. AI is not going to... I haven't adopted yet using sort of an AI tool from that perspective, but I do have enough preliminary screening questions up front to say, well, some of my clients aren't accredited with visas, so okay, I'm going to put them in that box, but this person might not fit this job, but I've got multiple other roles, and so I'm sort of thinking of the bigger picture and go, okay, but I've got something else.
Yeah. So it's really, you want to get that foot in the door, even being able to be seen by taking the effort, doing it properly, and then you're going to be able to go through it. I would imagine, I certainly would do it. That's actually when you're more likely to actually get AI screen. It's like, okay, here's the top 10 applicants, or here's this 8 CVs I've been sent through, put them all in there, and then, give me your opinion, chat, so you've got to be able to get to that point first. Biggest red flags on CVs that you see people?
Oh, biggest red flags. I would say listing just responsibilities, and you can see you've cut and pasted. So say you're a salesperson, for example, right? And you've moved in your career, but it's the same list that you've given me. You haven't given me outcomes. You haven't given me explanations about what you've done. You haven't given me targets that you've met. So again, you're not distinguishing yourself from anybody else in the marketplace.
Yeah. So you're saying, rather than just saying these are the sort of basic things, you're really looking for a little explainer on each role, what you did. And then if you can say, hey, I hit the targets here, or we did this there, we won a customer service award here, some little highlight from the career.
Absolutely. And I know sometimes there's circumstances where there could be a career where you've jumped a little bit and people might go, oh, they've moved a bit fast, what's gone on there? Well, if you're not going to put in your CV, put in your cover letter, give some explanation as to, because, there are often 9 times out of 10, it is probably out of your control, or, the company closed down, or your partner became unwell and you had to take a break, etc. So if you take them on the journey and give a little bit of context, that can sometimes also go, oh, well, actually, I'm going to get a phone call. I'm going to get invited for an interview.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think a lot of people have sort of said that, or they expect that everybody else lives this real lineal life and does well, just take Brigitta, for example.
Yeah.
Well, obviously must have been born in the same town, born in the same place, go to the local high school, go to the local uni, whatever you study at uni, that's exactly what you're going to spend the career doing.
Yeah.
It never changes. Yeah. That's just not how virtually anybody is.
No.
It's people move around, things change. You might go to high school, you might get a trade, you might go to uni.
Yeah.
You may still be in that, you may not. You'll find that you do different things. So, yeah, economies go up and down, partner, all of these sort of things. So, but it just explain what it is if people can understand the story, I can place, and that's why that happened.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back a bit, but do you have the photo on the CV or not? Because Kiwis traditionally never put photos on the CV, but I noticed some other Asian countries love a photo on the CV.
Yeah, and South Africa they do too, particularly if you've got a different name, for example. I sometimes like the photo, but don't go full headshot. Go sort of almost a passport size in the corner. I think it's great. It gives you a personal feel. You're kind of connecting with that person already. LinkedIn profiles, obviously these days, put a link to that. So, people are cross-referencing, or they might do a Google search on you. Again, we might come to that and saying, hey, just what's out there on yourself. Check that before applying for a role. I'm pretty sure, most of the time you might have entered an adventure race, or it could be you worked for other companies, and so your company, like I'll come up with different companies that I might have worked for because I've done articles, or because I've posted, jobs. So therefore, it'll bring that sort of thing up.
Yeah, that's it. If in the professional space, would you recommend having a LinkedIn profile?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I would. I've already got my kids. They've all got them on there, and they're already building out their little network. I think it's a great little social media community. Everybody benefits from a LinkedIn profile. Now, here's one where the people do is whether you're able to say, what do you do when you Google somebody and then they've got an unlocked Facebook profile, and then it's just them just getting smashed on Cody's, on Wednesday night, or doing skids in the driveway, and you're up until then, you're like, man, I thought you were really clean cut.
Yeah, you sort of got to take it into context.
Yeah.
And it can open a few things up, but I think, it's kind of go, okay, people have a personal life. How far back was that? And actually, what is the role that they're applying for? If you're a CEO and you're doing funnels last weekend, then probably not such a great lot.
Yeah. Great call for them. But then same again, if you're in a hyper competitive world and you really want to nail it and get a role, it's a smart thing is Google yourself and see what comes up, and then use a friend's phone or do something else and be like, okay, well, if I go and just click on my Facebook profile and Instagram profile, those are the two major ones, like what is going to come up? And hey, if it is some sweet party, but it was actually 2017, maybe it's time to hide that photo or make it private.
Yeah.
And go,
Yeah, you can.
especially whilst it's just going through that process where you're telling a story. I'm not saying you're not lying, but you're just like, we all enjoyed a party, but we don't necessarily need to show that off when we're trying to convince an employer to, take us on. Yeah. So,
yeah, lock it down. And, if you don't want people to see, then make it private.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Cool. Hiring truth. People don't want to hear. Like, what do you think is people don't want to hear about what's actually going on in the recruitment industry or how it actually goes about getting a job?
I think people think there's a lot of bias still out there, and I'm not saying that there isn't, absolutely. And for me, when I look at some of those hiring truths, it could be down to, okay, there's the last two candidates, and they really want to understand, well, why didn't I get that job?
Yes.
And at the end of the day, sometimes it's not dramatically something else, but how did you come across in the interview? How did you sell yourself? How concise were you, your CV, your attitude? And it could be just something as small. And it does sometimes come down to cultural fit. And it's really hard to explain that because they're going, that's because I turned up in XYZ, or I may have said something that's highlighted. And it does come down to how you explaining and bringing yourself across. So just get some interview coaching. If you haven't interviewed for a while, there are some pretty good interview coaches out there you can just practice on that really are going to push you. Sometimes people tell me things and I go, did you really just say that? Like the other day, I was interviewing a candidate and he said, look, I'm 58 years old. And I was like, well, there's nothing wrong with that. But he goes, but I'm not going to change. This is who I am. And if they can't accept that, then this is just what you get. And I kind of went,
flashing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Look, appreciate that you aren't going to, and I appreciate your honesty, but really, we're looking in this world, we're looking for adaptability. You're going for a job that's probably not the first place I would have started. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, the only constant in this world is change. Yes. Yes. I think you could probably get away around those with two things. Is one, or improve your chances, is study the company, read the values and vision, and think to yourself, if you really want this job, are you prepared to reflect their values and vision and therefore talk about it? This is tough for some people, but you really think about what you were going to say and how would this land?
Yes.
And just because you hold, and this I think is even more important now than ever, just because you hold a really strong opinion about something because the algorithm feeds you a lot of information about it on your social media feed, and then maybe you choose to watch YouTube videos about it, it's highly likely that the rest of the world generally doesn't care or potentially holds an opposite view to you. And it's best not to bring that up in a hiring scenario.
No, I agree. Absolutely. The political arena, for one, often, or, the religious arena as well. Those are probably two.
It's always considered in polite company.
Yeah.
Stick away from politics. Yes. Stick away from the religious discussion. Because if you're a sort of polite, middle-of-the-road person, you're probably not too concerned about either of those. And if you really are concerned about those, it's highly likely that the person you're talking to might be on the other side.
And you're going to get into some hot water. So.
Yeah, and then they're going to be like, I think I'm just going to take the easier, more pleasant person over there. That was, that's it. Maybe a little bit of sports chat, but even that, I've had that sometimes, and people are so wound up about whether their rugby team or football team or something won or lost or something. And I'm like, hey, I enjoy a chat, but I'm also not that concerned whether they win or lose. I like the Wires whether they win or they lose. You know, it's better. Absolutely. But if you're going to be distraught about it, whoa, this could be a lot of unhappy Mondays.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, yeah, I think that's, is there any, I was going to just chuck this out there, and I think this is a new thing that's happening real quickly, but is if you want interview coaching or coaching of any type, I've seen it. I follow a lot this dude Jocko. Ask Jocko. There's AI models. Is Frida and I, and so Frida and my wife, and we run this business together. Brian's. We did a lot of initial leadership training using ChatGPT. Like Frida in particular, you'll have been working with her on HR issues.
Absolutely.
Is you can talk to whether it's the free or the paid model and be like, ask me this is the role I'm going for. Insert the job ad. This is my CV.
Absolutely.
You've probably already done it. Why don't you ask me questions about what they're most likely to do? And then if you've got the model where you can type into it, or voice, even better, is record your answer and then see whether you're speaking clearly enough that it's transcribing it correctly. But you could really use AI to your advantage as a free interview coach. Be my interview coach.
100%. Yeah, you can create a little agent or a bot and go, this is, here's plug in the job description or the advert. This is what I'm applying for. This is my CV. Give it as much information. What would be some likely interview questions? Give them at me and I'm going to record my answers. Yeah.
Yeah, maybe even go, throw me some hard questions, throw me some difficult questions, and then you'll be so much more prepared when they go in. Because it's in your interest is to find people for the role. Like that's, I think people have a misconception that they think all the recruiters are against them. They don't want to get anyone a job. And you're like, the number one thing, recruitment consultants want to get people jobs. They want to get the right people jobs.
Yeah.
So that employers, so everybody's happy with it.
And like I can interview someone and they do really well or they haven't done so great. And then I said, look, I'm going to put you forward because based on your experience, you didn't interview so well. So here's some tips. And I can give them as much training and coaching at the end of the day. But they can, once they're in front of my client, I'm out of control now. I can't control what they're going to say. And then my client goes, some of them will ring up and go, I'm not sure what you saw, but I didn't see that. So, it's, at the end of the day, is the more preparation you can do, the more success it's gonna be. And I know not everyone's natural at it, and often like roles, in engineering roles in particular, my clients do have to take a totally different way of interviewing, and it's often quite technical. I say walk through the workshop or talk about some projects and get into your language, and that's when you'll really see them, ask them, what do you like to do on the weekend, or how would your boss describe you? They have no idea. They just sort of sit there like a, deer in headlights.
Yeah, that's it. I've been on those sides. I'm probably better at just talking. But that's the same thing as being a bit of practice. Use AI on your side. Like those questions will come up and then if it goes, what are you going to be doing on the weekend? The correct answer is not smashing a box of Cody's, watching the motorsport. Like, bless it, if that's what you want to do, but you want to think, okay, how do I show off for this role? Because that's not what ideally you spend all weekend doing. Is you're like, hey, I want to spend some time with the kids watching sports. Oh, cool. You've slipped that in. Hey, I want to do this. I enjoy long walks on the beach or anything to give it a bit of fill out the fill out the story of
the person. Who are you? And, if you're going for a role with Waikato Sheds, perhaps as a builder, for example, talk about, your hobbies on the weekend. You might be doing a bit of DIY.
Yeah.
Link it into the role if there is any relevance. Absolutely.
Yeah, if there is some relevance, so you can do it. Hey, if the role needs someone that's a bit going to be more fit and active, show how you're fit and active on the weekend. If the role's in engineering or a software role, hey, I really like to keep up to date. I follow these key thought leaders. Yes. I've read this book. If they go, what's the last book you read? Don't be like, have like at least just one at the top of the head. And if it's just go and get a simple book. Go and get Sean Johnson's book or Brad Thorne's or Richie McCaw. At least you'll be like, I read a book from a great, great Kiwi All Black one time. It's real simple. It'll have some good lessons and it'll be a great answer.
Yeah.
If you said the last book I read was Richie McCaw's, you'd be like, oh, good choice. Great.
Absolutely.
Just like,
And look, it's in a world of podcasts. So I like to listen to podcasts, and it could be, inspirational ones, or it could be, money or financial ones. It could be anything. Pick a topic you're interested in and just maybe narrow in on that.
Well, pick a topic you're interested in. Shedlife would go down great. What do you? I listen to Shedlife podcasts. Perfect. What was your favourite one? Paul and Mark drunk heaps of beer. No, that's it. I really like Andrew Miller, and he talked about mindset and success.
Yeah.
Same thing as you're like, hey, maybe 90% of the podcasts you listen to like those dark true crime ones, but occasionally you listen to some sort of Mel Robbins, like some uplifting one.
Yeah.
The correct answer in the interview processes, I like listening to Mel Robbins.
Yes.
I like listening to The Diary of a CEO.
Yeah.
No, I like listening to silly boys tell drinking stories,
Yeah.
It's the same thing. And it doesn't make you a bad person. It doesn't make you lying.
Yeah.
You're just thinking, okay, how do I portray myself in the best light whilst telling the truth? And that's what we're trying to do, because we know that everyone's going to listen to funny stuff, dumb stuff, good stuff. That's ideally what we're all doing.
And also depending what your mates are sharing with you as well, that what's the topic of conversation at that time.
What's coming across. From what you've seen, what can employers do better? How can they go from going, I can never find anybody good out there, Jace? Why is there there's no one good left anymore? What could they do better on the hiring process?
Yeah, I think there's still a thing of perfection. So clients are looking for the perfect candidate, fully trained, perfect attitude, low salary expectations. People that just don't exist or they're available. So good people aren't looking for jobs. They're being good in their current job, right? So what's going to make them interested in yours? So the role needs to be attractive. You need to have some flexibility on, actually, I'm paying for these skills. So, I've got to have, and there's ways of structuring that. Or if maybe even hiring for attitude. So going, okay, they don't necessarily have it, but man, they're coming across and they want to learn and they're hungry. So how can I invest in that talent and get them up to speed pretty quickly? Communication, being clear on the role and your expectations, I think, up front, and getting back to candidates. You're losing good candidates. They've got choice. The longer you're taking, I know you want to be thorough in your process, but at the same time, just taking too much time, you can just lose the best ones out there.
Yeah, that would certainly be true. Yeah. How much does it play in from what you've seen? Because I've known so many people, I've spoken to so many people, and my belief is it's attitude forms almost the aptitude, and then the skill set doesn't matter. Take Waikato Sheds. I've never worked in construction in my life, and then got a sales role, became the GM, now part owner of it.
Yeah.
It's only been 7 years. We've we're probably quadrupled the size of it, so
absolutely.
But if we were hiring on it, the temptation would be like, hey, we want 5 years shed construction experience or 10 years, so how does that sort of play, and how do you deal with employers? Because I bet there's a lot of people going, yeah man, if I could only get my shot, I could prove that I can do it, and then the employer's like, hey, I want 10 years experience or 5 years, or
Yeah, and that's why, Jason, I'm still looking at everyone's CV, because sometimes somebody might not have as much experience, but they could be just on the cusp. And so once I really dig into that, I guess that's the beauty of using a recruiter, right, is that I'm doing all the hard yards and all the hard work. There's 100 CVs. I've got you down to the top 5. And I sometimes put an anomaly in there, but my assessment explains why. Or I'll pick up, able to do that, but I'll pick up the phone and say, you've got this anomaly and these are the reasons. This is what was demonstrated in the interview. And the clients, I've had it before where they've gone, man, that's the best candidate and I'm going to employ them. So, yeah.
And what would be on the role? Like, say someone's a bit younger, or this, like, how would they, if they think they can nail a leadership role, or if they've always worked in customer service, or they've always been on site but they want to get into sales, for example, like how could they either demonstrate that on a CV, or how would they best pitch themselves when they're trying to either move industry or move within the industry? So you're moving from I'll use a build, I'm going to go from being an on-site. I'm an on-site foreman, but I've always seen those account managers cruising around. I really would think I could do great. I would be able to relate to people, but how would they best pitch that?
Yeah, I think what you need to do is pull that back into life examples. Well, look at myself. I had never worked in recruitment.
Yeah.
And so they said, well, we love your technical background. We can see that you're hungry about getting into sales. So, we'll give you the training on the sales perspective. But if there's an opportunity for you to do a course, so say you're in your current company and you're wanting to make that step into leadership, for example, I often go, well, see what your current organisation is happy to put in terms of training and development. Or if there's a project, put your hand up, say, can I take the lead on that? Yep. And so you might not have been a true leader of 4 direct reports, but you took the lead, you still had to delegate, you were, at the end of the day, you had the onus and the responsibility. So getting some of that experience across in your examples, in your CV and demonstrating, and then, that should get you through.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
I think I certainly know that I would rate it so highly, and I have in the past. If you want to do it, there's free online courses that you can do.
Yeah.
And sure, it's not quite the same as an MBA, but it's not as different as you would think. Is if you can clearly demonstrate, hey, I did this course, I got accredited for it, I've been through all of this, and then you can answer some questions on it. You haven't just made up that you've done it.
Yeah.
Or, or you passively watched a video and then they, printed out a certificate for yourself.
Yeah.
If you can say, hey, this is what I've done and this is what I've learned and this is how I think it could be applicable to what I've done, that will go a very long way.
Absolutely. And we talked about AI at the start. AI is a hot topic, but there is a lot out there and it is going to be disruptive. There's some pretty good online courses that you could do. And the world's changing that my clients are now going to be asking for people with that skill set.
Yeah.
And so what's out there that I can do even just to get the foundational knowledge, but maybe, try and find something that's industry specific. So, for example, in the manufacturing space, it could be machine learning, automation, etc. So what's coming out? What's the latest ERP or MRP systems if you're a warehousing or logistics environment? So tailor it to that. But definitely, I think clients are going to be asking more and more, what's there, and it may even be in an interview stage, what sort of AI have you been exposed to? So just getting at least a grounding or a knowledge, don't be afraid of it. We still need the human learning with the AI and the robotics. But that graduate who potentially has that over one that doesn't is certainly going to get a look in.
Yeah, and I think this one goes back to, and this might be confronting to a few people, but AI is here and it's here to stay. And just by stating, just like the 58-year-old is, I'm not going to change, all the people go, I'm never going to use AI.
Yeah.
It's no different to the guys on site going, I would never use an impact driver. I shall always nail off my roof. And you're like, well, how's that going now, bro? How's it?
Yeah.
I remember, I'm old enough that I remember the people like, I'm never going to use the interwebs. I don't need to know about these emails. I've got a post box. I don't need a website. I don't need Facebook I don't need. All of that stuff seems old hat now.
Yeah.
If you're out there and you're using it and going, you've got to start with some ChatGPT, there's heaps of the free programs, but that can make you go, hey, instead of being like, AI hates me and won't get my CV through, how do I use these AIs and be like, look, I've used all of these, I've just used the free or the paid versions of these, but I've got experience, I can do this, I can prompt.
Yeah.
There's so many good videos on it.
Yeah.
Is so many firms right now are going to be looking for people. Maybe they've got the experience, but there's an advantage here because it's been around so little time. What they're actually going to be looking at is a willingness to use it and not be negative about it and be like, hey, I'm just keen to use it in my role. If Copilot's going to do it and it can help me with that, if chat can, if I can put 3 different price files from 3 different suppliers in there and then just work it out and be like, okay, what's the best from hundreds and hundreds of lines of pricing. It's amazing what it can do.
Yeah.
It doesn't replace it. It can just help you make decisions faster and be better.
Yeah.
So we said, what can employers do better? What can the average applicants do better? We said, tailor it to it, tell the story better. But what do you think? What else?
Be truthful. You know, if you're dishonest, it's going to come through eventually.
Yeah.
It's going to trip you up. So if you haven't done it, be honest about it. If you have done it, great. Preparation is key. Yeah, at the end of the day, you can't over-prepare. Turning up to an interview as well, be better dressed than the person that you're going to be interviewed via. Yes, you don't probably need a tie, but, you know, a suit jacket. Don't be turning up in your scruffies. If you are coming from work for an interview, then just let us know ahead. Often I say to my client, look, the candidate can only get there from work and are going to be in their work clothes. Is that, and as long as we're prepared, absolutely. Tardiness as well. Punctuality is super important. Don't be super early. Rather sit in your car if you are and walk in 5 minutes before. Address the person at the reception if they've got one, because, first impressions last. And that's the whole thing about turning up too, is the first impression.
That's the thing, is you don't know who you're dealing with. So I've always had a thing, and I said it to myself and the kids, it's always better to be the best dressed person at the wedding than the worst dressed person at the wedding. And I've been to so many weddings and I've always been grateful. And I honestly think it's always been a better time because everyone's nicer and friendlier to you.
Yeah.
And that's also the interesting thing of just being well dressed.
Yeah.
It's just try and look at it hard. If you think your best dressed version of you is Chuck Taylor's or the Jordans or something, is maybe go and find the old school shoes, and just think, okay, how does my grandma want me to dress? It's better to dress just more formally and more old school than the other way around, because you don't know what. Like, for whatever reason, I still just dislike the sneakers and skate shoes. You know this. I just have this personal dislike of skate shoes, sneakers, and that sort of thing in the workplace, in a formal office setting.
Yeah.
Why some carryover from the 90s? I don't know. But anyway, that's going to put somebody on the back seat, and that's just me and one of my idiosyncrasies. Sure, I'm going to look at everything else and you can call it out and say, that's stupid, Jess. Yeah, it is. But, whatever. Yep. That's me. I'm sitting on this side of the table, so I get to make this stupid, I get to have that sort of thing. But, it's just how you're dressed. 5, max 10 minutes early. Any earlier, sit in the car, just wait for it.
Absolutely. Thank them, ask them, ask them questions. Particularly, I find really good questions. Well, what are you hoping to achieve by this role?
Yeah.
What would be, 60 days, 90 days, and 12 months look like to you? Have questions. When they say, oh, do you have any questions? Oh, no, thank you. And you're walking out. You haven't left that last impression.
Yeah.
So don't have too many, but again, just have a little bit of preparation in that piece, and then say, look, thank you for the opportunity. When do you expect to hear back? If it's, often you want to know a bit of a time frame and show that you're interested.
Yeah. Can I give, if it's a smaller company and you're either dealing with the owner or the GM type level, have you got any questions, no matter how long they've been in business, but let's assume it's more than a year or two. Yeah. It's just like, hey, look, you've been in business for 3 years, 13 years, 30 years. What's been the key to success in staying in business? If you ask them that, they're going to regale you with a story of their legendariness. And then be like, is that question there is, have you got any questions? When the person that's interviewing asks you, is your opportunity to reflect back a question to get them to talk about their business and themselves, and then they'll like you a whole lot more.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The question is not, when can I start? That's too confident, but it's actually just annoys people because they're like, hey, I'm going through a process. That's a bit rude. Yeah. You're asking a closing question at the wrong time. Yeah. How much will I get paid? And you're like, that's not the time to ask this. You should either have a really good indication of where it's at, and there's a different part of the process for it. Yeah. If it's a much larger and a corporate firm, it's to say, hey, look, you've obviously worked here a while. What do you like about this company?
Yeah.
And then watch them.
Yeah.
Sit there and think, it's a pleasant question. It's
Yes.
completely fair. You can ask somebody,
Yeah.
hey, what do you like about the company?
Yeah.
And then they'll tell you, and you can just have a more friendly
Yeah.
conversation off the back of that.
Yeah. No, for sure.
I see this one come up, is new graduates often will complaining, or people that are new into industry, how do I get into an industry where everybody wants 5 years experience, or 2 years experience, or 3 or 10 years experience? Why do employers have such a preoccupation with that sometimes? So there's got to be two sides of this. Why do they get so preoccupied with it? And I've seen it as by and far our most successful people within Waikato Sheds generally have no direct industry experience. And when we've employed salespeople that have sold sheds in the past, they have massively underperformed comparative to people that haven't sold sheds. It's just the truth of it. It's
Because sometimes you're bringing old habits into the role. Look, there's two sides to it. So the employers sometimes they're being restrictive because they think, I just don't have the time to train. I just want this person to come in and hit the ground running, or I want them to bring their networks and etc. On the candidate side, the key thing is probably what is my attitude? How can I cut through the noise and just identify that, well, okay, it might have been a sports that I've done that I've been a captain for. So there I can demonstrate leadership rather than, okay, I haven't done that, or projects, etc., that I've sort of talked about. So you need to rise above the rest. You need to it's not just about skills, it's about attitude, it's about fit, understanding the business. And if it says 5 years, ring up. I've got 3. Okay, great. If you can get an internship, if you can offer yourself maybe for some free work. Hey, can I come in for a day? I know in some industries there's the health and safety, or can I just come and observe? Those sorts of things make a huge difference and will get you probably the job.
Yeah. I'll just touch on that one. So people are younger, is how much would it play into it if they can do it but the right way of talking up sports experience? Like, how can they weave that sort of thing? Does that come up if someone goes, hey, I've only been at high school, or I've been at uni, I'm young, but I've also been rowing the last 4 years, or I've been a champion hockey player, or I'm really good at javelin, or rugby, insert sport.
Yes.
Does that play into it at all?
Oh, absolutely, because you're showing commitment, you're showing training, you're showing that you are turning up, right?
Yeah.
You're showing reliability. Those are huge things that an employer is going to be looking for. Is this person going to be reliable? Are they going to say they're going to, because often you're joining a team, right?
Yes.
So you're showing that you're a team player, but that also you've taken ownership of what you can bring to the table.
Yeah. I think, if you've got sports, and this can be as you go on, if you can play it up the right way, hugely valuable. I certainly would look to that. And you could tell the interesting story both ways, as you might think, oh, but I played for my first 15, or, the rugby player, and we got smashed. Where I was never at the top. And you're like, that actually tells an interesting, different story, because
Resilience, right?
it shows you resilience, and you're going to be there for the team, and you're going to do it anyway. As most companies aren't at the top of the industry. Most companies are in the mid.
Yeah.
If they're at the bottom, that's no good. But, most are just floating in the mid. So they're never at the top. They're never at the bottom. They just cruise on. They never get the championship.
Right.
They never get relegated. And so we're like, I just turn up I pride myself on always turning up to trainings. I turn up to all the games, and, we win some, we lose some. As people go, oh, that is actually sounds normal. That sounds good.
Absolutely.
You don't have to necessarily be in the champion. And hey, if you're going, hey, I don't do sports, but I do something else. I do scouts. Or I don't, It's use that example, because if
Even
you can
volunteering.
Volunteering. So if you can say, hey, I've been showing up and I don't get paid. In fact, I often pay to show up and give my time. That goes a long way to being like, oh, that's important.
Yeah.
And if you go, hey, I don't do any of that, Jace. All I do is game in my room at home. And unless you're going for a gaming role, you're like, man, you need to go out there. And my honest recommendation is go and join the box. Go and join something where you can say, hey, I'm getting out there with the people.
Yeah.
But if you work in IT, man, they're like, awesome. What games do you play?
Yeah.
I'm at level 299 of dungeons and,
Yes.
whatever. It's like, no, cool. Maybe within that world, and if that is your world and that is, why not be proud of it? Because there'll be a whole lot of people who'll be like, bro, that's awesome. You're at 297.
Yeah.
I've been only grinding for 10 years and I'm only at whatever level,
Absolutely. Yeah.
So, let me not throw shade upon that.
No.
But it's not my world. I always look for the martial artists when I've seen that. If I see someone and go, hey, I've got my black belt and whatever, and I'm not going to type with karate, judo, whatever, is you're like, hey, that person's gone and dedicated at least 3, but probably 5, 10 years of themselves. Same thing, just turning up, doing their thing, doing their patterns. Is you're like, well, that shows commitment and reliability.
Yeah.
And if you weave that into the story and say, hey, this is what it shows it. Not that I'm just like obsessive with getting into my pajamas on Tuesday and Thursday night and bowing and doing crazy moves.
Yes.
Because you can have a laugh with it, with it all. Is hey, this is where I can show it and I can work in with people.
Yeah.
Then people are like, hey, that's cool. That's where you can say, I can show respect and follow instructions.
Yeah.
What are some of the funniest or the worst or strangest applicants that you've had or come across the desk?
Look, if you've got a video call, 100% make sure what's in your background. Really, that is super important. So you can blur it. Find one of those AI ones, San Francisco Bridge behind you.
Yeah.
But don't have your bedroom door or the shower and then the next minute your partners walk past or, your dog or your kids or just be very mindful of where you're sitting and what does that look like. And you can test beforehand, 100%.
Yeah.
Look, I've had interviews where I've rung someone and declined them, and they've said to me, "Oh, that's okay. I'm just going to carry on sitting on the dole, drinking Coke and smoking cigarettes on your tax money." And I've gone, "Okay, well, you probably weren't right for the job." So thank you for your honesty. So look, there's so much when you've been in it 22 years. Been pretty interesting. What I can come across.
Yeah, awesome. Let's just speak to it. So how long have you been running RecruitNet for then? How long have you been self-employed for then?
5.5 years. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
And so how does a recruitment consultant work? So for an employer's perspective, explain how it works and what you would sort of do in the offering that it does.
Yeah. How I tend to not pitch myself, but actually how recruitment works is you've got a job need, right? So you're needing to fill a vacancy. And so by adopting a recruiter to come in is we're really going to come in and understand the role. Initially, I'm going to really dig into, okay, well, why is this role available? And actually, what are the criteria that you're looking for? I'm going to test those boundaries as well and just figure out this need. Once we've scoped the position, the strength I bring is the time that it does take, right?
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I know employers say, oh, look, I want to save some money and I'm just going to put an ad up. Well, all you're getting is a third of the market. So a third of the market is applying and those are your active candidates. And there's a reason they're on the job market potentially. Not saying that there's not good people there, but you're missing out on a whole nother 2/3. And that is the inactive ones. So the ones really good in their job. And the ones who are going to be able to refer other people who they know are good in their job. So you're just missing out on this whole talent pool. And so by engaging with us, we would then go to the market and cover all of those. I'd cover my referrals, my database, the active as well. And that all takes time. And then it's interviewing those people, right? So yes, on a CV, they look fantastic. But really, when you read down to it, the other thing that's really important that clients, or yourself, client or customer, is that the candidate process right? So how do they feel through that recruitment process? And that comes down to your brand. So did they feel looked after? Were they communicated to? And that can really hinder or help your reputation. So you want to be able to get the best out there. And if you have multiple roles coming up and you're finding that the candidates are going, but they're never going to get back to me, they'll stop applying, or they start to talk to each other. So recruiters, so we basically will go through, say, 100 applications. We might interview 10, 12 of those and give you the short list between 3 to 5 and what suits the role, and then support you through that. So reference checking, interview preparation, questions, setting those all up, etc. Yeah.
I think it's interesting is being able to talk to the network and knowing so many people that you'll have interviewed and been around and been like, hey, you could be great for this role. I like it as whether you like this or not, but I say it, as it's so much nicer, I find, and pleasant to buy a house having a real estate agent. Like whenever I've sold a property, it's so much because then they can portray the property on behalf of you.
Yes.
We're Kiwis, so it makes the whole dealing with the financial side of it. And if you're smart on the employee side, you'll actually prefer to deal via a recruiter because you can be like, hey, I'm really looking for this, I'm worth it by this. And then you're going to be able to argue that better on behalf of the employer. And you can have that financial conversation without having to have it directly with a new boss or not new type of thing.
Helping negotiating salaries. Candidates want to know about culture. Sometimes it could be a reputational thing of your business out there because they've seen or heard something, and I can often get through that and go, hey, look, but this is what's going on. Oh, wow, I didn't know about that. And often all candidates will go for an interview and go, it's exactly what you explained to me in terms of the person, the culture, and what they're looking for, and I'm really excited about the role.
Yeah, that's awesome. Cool. And whereabouts do you work? Because do you just do the Waikato? Or?
No, I work nationally. I sort of don't really play in the Auckland market, and it's more because there's enough players up there. Where I've been really good is the Waikato and regional roles. I've and also again doing it over 22 years, I'm actually getting a lot of repeat candidates. So I've just actually twice now. I've placed someone 14 years ago and they've now come back and said, hey, I'm ready for my next job, and put them into their next role. And so that's really exciting. It's just following them through, and that candidate could then be my client, yourself included, Jason. And so I work nationally, predominantly north from the Waikato down to the bottom of the North Island. I do have some clients in the bottom of the South as well, but
that's cool. What I was going to say is I think sometimes people get, and it is an emotional time when you're either looking to hire somebody, but more so when you're looking to get hired. But it's like, hey, most people will move roles over their time. It's the days of just, like New Zealand isn't a country full of ginormous corporations where you go to the right school, the right uni, and you get a job with Uber Corp, and then you stay there the rest of your life. There's a little bit of that, but the majority of people, you go to whatever school, you go to whatever uni, have a good time, or you go to school, get a job, and then every 3 to 5 to 10 years, you think, hey, either something's happened at the workplace, you're going to move, or you want to, something happens is you're going to move around. And so being able to have that relationship with a recruiter and employers to be able to fill those roles and fill those gaps is huge. And
even just to understand what the market's doing. And even like, okay, I'm going to pitch my salary. I'm going into either, just a review with my current employer, and I'm not looking. It's just ringing up and saying, hey, actually, what is the market doing, etc. So it's good to use from a candidate perspective. It's good to use a recruiter because you can then benchmark yourself as well and make sure that you're applying for the right level role. And often I say to candidates, look, this role is paying this, but this is actually a reflection of the position, not a reflection of you. So how flexible are you on this, etc. And don't go for it if you're not. That's fine. I can understand some people have, what they need to live on. So,
No, that's cool. And what is happening? We'll pretty much wrap it up, but what are you seeing out there in the employment market at the moment?
I'm still seeing there are a lot more candidates probably on the job market, but candidates are prepared to move. Actually, I had a meeting with my Seek account manager yesterday, and she showed me my statistics over the last 6 months, and she said the direct reach you did in the back to candidates, she said you've got 100% who have opened that and responded. She said, I haven't seen that with any other agency. So clearly, whatever you're writing or doing, people are interested in, and they may, might not be looking because their CV might say it was updated over a year ago. So rather than recently. So that's, it's a good, kind of what I'm seeing at the moment. So employers are probably still taking a bit too long and making decisions and thinking, if there's all these candidates, I can just, get whoever. You need to be, again, it's your brand, it's your reputation. If you want to go to the market, get going and be consistent, and through that. And even if there's delays, just say, look, we understand everyone's busy, but even if it's communicating that there's nothing to tell, that's better than nothing at all. Yeah.
Okay, so there is. I mean, there's still roles out there. People are still hiring. There's a general sort of economic, slight uncertainty or weirdness that I think all businesses, but all people are going to have to adjust to a new reality.
Yeah.
Change is constant. Yeah. There's going to be. Yeah. I joke around it. Whereas a similar thing is, maybe it's different in South Africa, but. I say that. But anyway, 90s, early 2000s, up until like 2008, there were no wars particularly.
No.
When I grew up, the Cold War was done. That was like the 80s were over. There was no real wars. No. Like the Iraq one of the night wasn't really a war. Yeah. It was like a game. Yeah. So there were no wars. There was nothing going on. Everything seemed real settled, and that we were on this just linear trajectory sort of up. Then we started having GFCs and these things, and it's just become more and more and faster and faster. And I think that's much more normal than people have become used to. But we need to readjust and go, okay, it sucks. I hope the best for everybody, but we can't wait for wars overseas to end before we invest and hire people in New Zealand or build something or go on a holiday or something. It's just like, hey, that sucks. It is what it is. Unfortunately, humans are pretty obsessive with fighting each other, and angry governments. But they've got to get over that and move it forward. But if there are lots of candidates, what would be the last couple of tips that you would put out there for people to shine through on their CVs and shine through for a role, knowing that, hey, for the majority of roles, there's probably going to be 2 or 3 good people that could do the role, and they've employer's going to choose one of them. So how do you make it that you're the one that's chosen?
Yeah. Look, you were talking there, this isn't my first rodeo. I've been through multiple GFCs, and at the end of the day, we still need to just get on as a country, right, and still do business. And so we are employing. And as I said, if you want to be seen, my ideal tip is within the first week of that, if you see a job ad, get your application in, reach out to that person, make sure your LinkedIn is up to date, make sure your social's locked down, be really specific and tailored, put examples in there. If there's a phone number, reach out. If there's not, for example, and you're on LinkedIn, jump on, send them a message. Hey, I'd like to connect with you. Don't just go connect. Actually add a note as to why you want to. And it could be, we've got this many multiple, mutual connections. I thought it might be beneficial. Or I see you're employing this role. I'd just like to connect with you. I've been following your business, etc. So, those are the things that are really going to help see you ahead of anybody else.
Yeah. That's it. They're not hard ones, but they're just... little secrets that will put you in front of the game and in front of the others, and that's what you got to do. It's a race, as you said. You're going to have 2 people, and one's only going to be slightly better or slightly different from the other. So how do you just put yourself into that so someone selects you? Yeah,
absolutely. And also feeding back after the interview, communication. If you go to the interview and then don't loop back and say thank you or hey, this is my feedback. Again, the person who does is obviously showing that they're really interested in that position.
Yeah, that's it. Is prove that there's 2 things I heard there, and I would say is prove that you want it, because people want to hire someone that wants the job and is committed to it.
Yeah.
And hey, if you're actively looking, I'm talking to the people, is check it every day and don't wait. I think that people have this, it's not cool to be the first in line. It's definitely cool to be the first in line when you're applying for the roles. Is have a look at the role, figure out the company, make sure that everything skews to it. How does my CV, how does my life, because the CV is just a story of your working life, how is that applicable to this role, and why should they be considered to get through to that next step with it?
And also remember that an employer or a recruiter is seeing multiple candidates with multiple roles. You need to be proactive. So if you, otherwise she's going to move on to the person that is. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's it. There are, and like, sure, you can say all the things, oh, they should all get back to me, or they should all do these things. Yeah, that would all be nice.
Yeah.
But there's so many applicants, there's so many things, is get back to them, follow them up, and do it with manners. Manners maketh the person.
Yes.
So, hey, just following up. I'm sure you've got lots on, but I just wanted to see where I'm at. When people send me those emails and they're pitching me or doing something, I'm like, oh, yeah, sure, okay, this is what I'm doing. Yeah, fine. Can you make it at 11 a.m. or, yes, I'll fit you in here. Come and pitch me your product. Like, tell me about it.
Yeah.
If they just send it if there's nothing personalized, they're never going to get through, or I'm never going to take the meeting.
No.
If it is personalized, I'll sort of tend to, and if they follow it up, I'll be like, I'll give this person the time of day.
Good. Yeah.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Anything out? And where's the best place to find it? Where's the best place to connect with you and then find out more?
Yeah, sure. Brigitta Warren on LinkedIn, absolutely. So follow me on there. Obviously, my website, RecruitNet, so recruitnet.co.nz.
Awesome. Yeah, LinkedIn, it's the place for recruiters.
Yes.
Go on there and go on the website. Yeah, I can highly endorse it from both sides, as working with Brigitta as a candidate. And then also HR and hiring virtually all the good people in the wonderful world of Waikato Sheds.
Thanks, Jason.
Awesome. Thank you, Brigitta.
Bye.